Well, we're definitely going to be late with this week's freight now. And that new engineer O'Brien does not like being late. I bet he'll be back here any second.
Conductor O'Connor, you here?
Back here, O'Brien.
What are you doing?
Just enjoying a cup of coffee. Would you like one?
Did you know I had to stop the train, pull into a siding?
I did. It's just a signal stopping us.
Pretty calm considering we were already running behind schedule. I was just getting up to speed to make up some time when that signal pulled us into the siding.
Probably just the westbound Overland holding us up. Not much to do but enjoy some fresh coffee and wait it out. Where's your fireman?
Jenkins? Got them checking the engine. Waste of time if you ask me.
What's a waste of time?
This, sitting here, is a waste of time. We only had a few miles left on the main, and it's clear. It was a faulty signal if you ask me.
Mojave just inspected that signal last week.
Maybe he did. It was better in the old days when we had real signalmen, not these electronic flags. No way to be able to cut time now.
Cut corners, you mean?
Easy, O'Connor. You folks from Green Valley may not have to worry about late trains. But in the big city, they don't mind if we break a few rules to get the job done so long as we're on time.
And you think that's how we should go about doing our business?
Absolutely.
You know, you sound just like Casey Jones did back in his time.
I would do well to sound like Casey Jones. May you rest in peace. You know he died on the rails.
Indeed he did. But did he really have to die?
What do you mean by that?
Well, surely you know the story.
I know the ballad.
The ballad, yes. A great ballad, but it does miss some of the nuances of that fateful night. We have some time before that Overland gets here. Why don't you take a seat and I'll tell you about him.
We're already behind schedule. Tell your story, O'Connor.
Well, it was a faithful, foggy, fairly rainy night, much like tonight. Casey pulled into Memphis on time with a trainload of passengers from Mississippi. Before he could even exit the locomotive to take a well-deserved break, the station master told him to take charge of the return train.
And Casey Jones said yes, as any good engineer would in a time of need.
Yes, but should the Illinois Central have put him in that position in the first place?
I'm not here to talk labor rights with you, O'Connor.
Neither am I, O'Brien. All I'm saying is that the railroad taking a loss on a late train was more important to them than making sure their engineers were well rested.
Casey Jones drove the train on his own volition. He could have said no to the return trip.
Yes, he did volunteer for the job, but you know Casey Jones was a company man, and the Illinois Central gave him his dream career, being a high-wheeling engineer. And in return, he assured them that he would do whatever it took to get those trains in on time.
And he was nearly almost always on time.
And he famously broke a few rules, or bent them at least, to do so.
He got the job done.
Indeed he did, all the way up until that night. Casey took off at nearly midnight with a trainload of passengers, an hour behind schedule.
And he got his train up to speed to make up for that time.
Yes, he did. And how fast do you think he was pushing that train to make up an hour that night?
I'd wager he was doing at least 90 miles per hour.
Exactly right. Sim Webbs, the fireman, still claims to this day that they were up over 100 miles per hour. Casey was taking that train to its limit that night, driving it around bends in the fog and the rain. He made up his minutes and seconds where he could. And he either missed or didn't see the flag telling him to pull into the siding.
That's disputed.
What's disputed is if he saw the flag or not. All the same, if Casey was going the regulated speed limit, he very well may have seen that signal pulling him to the siding.
But he would have been late otherwise.
Well, he certainly was late regardless, wasn't he?
Well, that's true. The train never made it.
because, as is the nature with the rails, there was a train on the line, and that signal was pulling him to the siding until they could get that train off the main line.
What was the issue with that train? The ballad doesn't talk about that.
Yeah, a broken air hose or something like that. All the same, as Casey rounded that bend, his side of the locomotive was obscured, so he didn't see the red lights of the held-up train just ahead. Sim Webb, being on the other side of the locomotive, was the first to notice the stuck train. He alerted Casey. Casey put the throttle in reverse and activated the brakes, but at over 100 miles an hour, there's no stopping that train.
You forgot to mention that Casey Jones had his fireman leap from the train in time.
Right, old Sim Webb fell unconscious as soon as he hit the ground. The last thing he heard was the screeching wheels and Casey blowing the whistle as the two trains collided. You know, he still tells that story in Memphis if you're ever down there.
Heck of a way to go. But Casey Jones saved a lot of lives that night.
Yeah, he saved everyone. He saved the crew, he saved the passengers, he saved the crew of the other train that was stuck on the rails. Everyone except himself.
Our lives are always in jeopardy on the rails, O'Connor. You should know that more than most.
You're quite right.
What am I missing, O'Connor, with Casey Jones's demise some 45 years ago while we're sitting in a siding waiting for the Western Overland to pass us by?
Well, you came in here complaining that that signal was faulty. Do you think we should have continued?
Absolutely. We're only on the main for a few short miles before we hit the junction to Green Valley. So tell me, O'Connor, what's the moral of your story?
Well, I guess our connection with Casey Jones is... it's better to be late than dead. And never underestimate the vigilance of your firemen.
Engineer O'Brien, we're all set and the signal's changed, so we better get moving if you want to make some time up. What are y'all doing back here?
Ah, Jenkins, just hearing this story about Casey Jones' heroic last ride.
Oh, that's a good one. But if you ask me, the real hero of the story is the fireman.
How's that?
Well, fireman Sim Webb and his alertness is what gave Casey any time at all to save anyone. Thank you. If Sim had been idle as they rounded that curve, they would have never seen that caboose up ahead. So if you ask me, it's Sim Webb, the fireman, that's really the hero of that story.
If there's any heroes at all, I think the whole thing was unnecessary and tragic.
I take your point, O'Connor. I take some offense in you suggesting that Casey Jones was anything less than a hero.
Rest easy, O'Brien. He was a hero long before his last ride.
How's that?
Well, surely you know the story of how he saved a little girl stuck on the tracks from certain death?
No, I don't know that story.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, perhaps another time, though. We don't know how long the main line will be open.
Right you are, O'Connor. Jenkins, let's get this train rolling.
Right behind you. See you back in town, Stephen.
Right. See you, Luke.
Come all you rounders if you want to hear a story about a brave engineer. Casey Jones was the rounder's name. On a 6-8 wheeler, boys, he won his fame. The caller called Casey at 4:30. Kissed his wife at the station door. Mounted to the cabin with his orders in his hand, and he took his farewell trip to that promised land. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin. Casey Jones with his orders in his hand. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin, and he took his farewell trip to that promised land. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin. Casey Jones with his orders in his hand. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin, and he took his farewell trip to that promised land.